13th. It's May 12th today. Almost 2 months. Just hit me. So it feels like a long time ago that we were last in Williamsburg on site in school, but geez, 2 months. That's an awful long time. Trudy, how are you doing?
I'm well. I'm well.
Good to hear. Good.
Slight headache, but I'm well. How's everybody?
I think we're doing all right.
Good.
How's that day doing?
Oh, he's fine.
He's fine. He's all right. Okay.
He's
Did
fine.
he have an exam? He had an exam yesterday?
He had his AP yesterday, yeah. That was so weird for him to do an AP exam in his room. I kept checking on him like, are you okay? Are you okay?
Yeah, it's bizarre. Yeah, I haven't talked to any kids about their experiences yet, but I'm impressed and surprised that AP pulled this all off.
Yeah. But he's doing well. How are you guys? How's your family?
Family is good. All is okay. Yeah, we're doing all right. We're close to my parents. It's been nice to see them, and they've been really helpful to us.
Good. That's good.
With daycare and stuff. So, yeah. Let's see. So, who else happens to be on? We've got an 845 number here.
That's me.
That's you. Okay, gotcha. Okay, you're on twice. You get 2 spots on my screen. And so I think I spoke with Marion earlier today. She'll be on. And I think we should have everyone. So it's 7:05 now.
Yeah, just so you know, I had a problem getting in. I had to go back in, I think, twice. So there was a little issue with the link.
Okay. We've got Chris on too. So Chris will swoop in and save the day if we need him. Did everyone see that Cal State University is going online in the fall? Yeah.
Did you hear the chancellor and the mayor kind of give a little precursor of what's going to happen in the fall today?
When did they? Did that happen today?
Yeah, I spoke to city council, and they were already talking about AM, PM shift, dividers in classrooms, putting some stuff online, reducing the hours kids are in, reducing the number of kids in a building at a time. And they said something like they'd be shocked if some combination of that didn't happen in September, which means they're not planning for full-fledged business as usual after Labor Day, which I thought was an awfully early time to tip their hand, but they certainly tipped it.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, so many questions there. Wow. Ken, have you been in touch with some of the folks that you work with in schools, and are they faring okay? Is it a mixed bag? Yeah.
It's sort of the principals are not having the kind of rich experience that they would have hoped to have had for kids when this kind of started out. They had high hopes for significant learning, and I think they're getting attendance, they're getting stuff like that. But I think that they're not unlike the rest of the city, where it's proving hard to get really good, solid engagement for lengths of period of time. So it's they're definitely feel the weight of that. They wish kids would be getting a better education. They're getting some. They know their kids are there, which is good, right? And kids are checking in, and well, that's my sense of it now.
Yeah. Someone just came on at 440.
Yep, that's Jeanette. I'm having trouble getting
Hey.
into the video, but I'm working on it. I texted
Oh,
Chris.
cool. It's all right. Yep. Right now, my son, who's at PS 29, is receiving like live instruction every couple of days for like an hour increment with his secondary
Really?
teacher. Yeah. And some of that small group stuff too. And from there's a lot of video and the watching of video and the sort of doing of assignments and submission of assignments. That's the tricky part, I think, for us as parents, is keeping up with that.
Right. I love the agenda I get from local school here. They're like, all right, so 9:30, 9:45, do this math worksheet. Then find a family member and do some physical education. Then find a family member and do some art.
Yeah.
And then at 12, have yourself a snack. I'm like, wait a second. Find a family member?
Yeah.
What are they going to do?
My son's school has like this sort of 100 math problem challenge right now going on.
Oh.
And so it's a different challenge every day. And I was keeping up with it. And then they moved into like these challenges where you had to have scissors and glue and paper. I'm like, no, I can't do all that too.
Isn't it incredible how fast you look away for 1 second? The scissor has glue on it.
Yeah.
Stuck to someone's forehead. It's utter mayhem. Oh my goodness. It's
so I think I saw Marion come on too, which is great. So I think we officially have quorum right now. And so
I just don't know. I mean, we need video to vote, right? And we don't have it. Do we care?
In some cases, I can see Ken, I can see Sarah, I can see Trudy, and Jim. I saw you for a little while, and then I saw Marion.
Okay, good. Okay.
And then I see that Josh Phillips is on too. Hey, Josh.
Hey, Josh. Okay, should we jump in?
Yeah, we'll jump into Mission Moment today. I hope it works. But yeah, we can start. And I guess I just say that just for folks on the call, this is being live streamed on YouTube, and then it privately. Chris has access to all that stuff, and then we are required to transcribe this at some point for the state. That's the word. So we do have an audience tonight. I think last month we may have had a couple of people tune in. So for those folks from the outside world taking part in this meeting tonight, we welcome you, and we hope you enjoy the program. For tonight with the Mission Moment. I think as we alluded to earlier in the call, I just want to make sure you guys can all hear me.
Yeah.
There are times in which sometimes I'll talk for like several minutes during the day, and then I figure it out minutes later and have to start over again. So I'm hoping that is minimized tonight. You've all had the same experience, I bet. So kids are taking AP exams this week, and College Board put them online. Instead of being multiple hours and on paper in classrooms with very, very meticulous rules and regulations, it's all online, and kids have 45 minutes to take an exam, which is open-ended. So very different experiences in comparison to prior years. Our kids had their AP Gov exam yesterday. Trudy's son took part in that. AP Calc was today. In total, there are 10 exams that our kids are taking part in over the next week. And so so it's been a lot. Our kids have been preparing hard. Teachers have been prepping hard for these exams. And while the environment's different, I mean, we want our kids to do their very best and show off what they've learned. And so there was a bit of a clip that I want to show you coming from educators at Unity wishing our kids well. I'm going to play that for you. I hope it works. You'll hear some dogs in the background. Ignore those dogs. And yeah, it's about 5 minutes of various folks wishing kids well, and so you get a sense of our teachers, many of them AP teachers who have been busting their tail this year and wanting the best for our kids, and so from homes, wishing kids well in various ways. We've got some creative folks here with different styles of humor, so appreciate this. Here we go. Let's see, share screen. I think I can share screen. Present now. Entire screen. Allow. Here we go. And so we're off.
We can't hear Josh.
Oh, you can't?
Yeah, the video's off.
No,
And
I can hear it.
The
though.
sound is off, yeah.
All right, let's see how we turn it on. What would be the best thing to do here? Think quick. Sound is off there. Why can't I play that?
Maybe the share screen is just a visual. Maybe it doesn't share sounds. I don't know.
All right. We'll do this. We'll skip out. So,
Why don't you send us the link and we can watch it on our own?
yeah, I'll do that.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Jake. Yeah. And then if you're really, really interested in watching more video of various folks on staff, it was Teacher Appreciation Week last week. And so at the middle school, there was a big 7-minute video of EP blurb. Here it is. Congratulations. And forward. So you can see that. That should be fine. You'll see the link there, and boom. All right, thanks for the suggestion. I'm back on the scene. Stop presenting. Here we go. So, what I would say there is just one note to self. I've got a quick kind of like blurb within that segment, and my recommendation is don't try to record a pump up video at 6:30 in the morning when you have allergies. It doesn't work out that well. So when you see the clip, just ignore what you see from me at 6:30 in the morning before a cup of coffee. So that's the mission moment. But I think in all seriousness, we embraced this AP for All program 2 years ago. We feel good that it's providing opportunities for kids to take courses that are quite rigorous. There's plenty of work to do in making these courses up to snuff for our kids, approachable, rigorous, engaging, etc. But we feel like that's the right work to be doing, and so that's what we're engaging in at this time. And so we wish our kids well with that over the coming week. That's the mission moment, Jim.
All right, shall we move to the report?
Yeah. Yes, you all may have access to a report in front of you. I'm gonna just highlight 2 items coming from that report that I want to provide some more tidbits on. And so the first is just our overall transition to remote learning over the past month. And so it's been a full month since the last time we met. I'm happy to say that things continue to go relatively well, particularly with regard to safety, to access, to communication, and to the format of what we're providing. If you recall in the last meeting, I described kids taking part in roughly 4 hours of instruction daily, fairly routine, fairly consistent, core courses, and then in the afternoon we do have kids taking part in some enrichment, PE and dance at the middle school, art and Spanish at the high school, art and theater at the middle school. So it feels fairly comprehensive in comparison to I think what other kids might be experiencing in schools in our neighborhood. So I feel good about that. Access-wise, 99% of our kids have what they need to engage in online learning. And so one of the best moves we made was to go hard on getting kids the technology they need early on. And as a result, like, we're not having to worry about that. I was in touch with another school leader last week who's wrestling with attendance levels of about 55% and still getting laptops out to families. So big difference between experiences of kids. And so we're pleased with that. On the communication angle of things, we've toned it back a little bit with regard to the amount of communication going out to various stakeholders, but based on some survey data as of last week, families are generally pleased with the communication we're having with them around initiatives in the school, service announcements, et cetera, et cetera. So all those things I feel are in good form. I do believe that the best decision we made so far with all of this has been to go live and daily with instruction. And so I think as a result, we've got daily communication with kids, know how they're feeling, know how they're doing, making sure they're healthy, making sure they're feeling good about themselves, and engaging in the schoolwork. That feels really good. And so the work more so over the past month has been in thinking about, Ken, this goes back to what you said earlier around some of the experiences you've had with school leaders in your neck of the woods, is around kind of engagement. And for us, it's been around grades, where we put assignments out on the daily with kids, and to some extent, there has been a drop in the amount of work that kids are submitting, which is impacting their grades. And so I think for us over the past month, we've been recalibrating high expectations and high support and what that means for us in this environment. And in some ways, easing up on the expectations and then providing a bit more support to kids and their well-being. And so I think the two areas that I'd want to flag that we're doing now more of over the past 2 weeks than we were doing initially, and this is just sort of a pivot for us, but I think it's a good one for kids and families, is we are having kind of these remastery days at the end of the week or regularly at the high school, where it's just an additional moment in time to pause, check in with kids, make sure their assignments that we've provided to them are complete and that they're doing them successfully. It might be extension for kids who are up to task and taking part in their work as assigned. And then with regard to just latenesses and things, there's greater leniency on our part in meeting families halfway to ensure that kids are, during these tough times, getting all the support they need and getting work done, even if it's a bit late. With our high school especially, we've had some kids who have taken on more responsibility, a couple of kids who have found work because their families need them to. As a result, they're not on the same schedule that they would have been on site. So helping kids out and making sure that they're supported during those tough times is important to us, and something that we've done more of over the past month to support kids. And then on the grading front, have what they do represent, have what I'm trying to say here in terms of grading, ensuring that the grades they have reflect what they know and can do, and not just simply the amount of assignments they're passing in. So I think that's one update on the transition end of things with remote learning. As you all know, we're going to be doing this through the rest of the year now, and perhaps beyond. But the move right now is to continue to be aware of mastery and kids' grades over the course of the next month and a half, and in supporting them to put their best foot forward in completing that which is assigned and setting them up for the next grade level.
Can you elaborate?
Any questions around remote learning?
Can you just elaborate a little bit more on what it looks like? Meaning, like, how much of the day is classroom type setting versus sort of assignments, and, sort of work on your own setting?
It's 4 hours of instruction, and so kids will have, for example, math, history, science, and an ELA daily during that time. And then within a lesson block, which is about 15 minutes, kids will have a modeling, sort of an opening up or an introduction, a model based on the objective that day, what kids are learning to do next, and then some practice time with some feedback. What's been impressive to me with the independent practice and feedback time is that teachers are able to see on the screen what kids are doing and producing and what they're not, and can give feedback in the moment very easily. And so we've been working with teachers to, over the course of the year, best practices, just like when kids have independent work, to circulate and check in on kids and see how they're doing and ask clarifying questions and kind of get in there and see what they know and what they don't know and challenge them. It's relatively easy to do that in this setting if work is presented on the screen, which it is in many of our classes. So that's the general flow of the class and the general flow of a day. As I mentioned, in addition to those core classes in the morning, We do have at the middle school enrichment going on in the afternoon, and at the high school, there's some targeted tutoring time in the afternoon for kids. Are there any other questions on remote learning and where we are now, or ideas or suggestions based on what you've seen either with kids at home or with schools you're working with if you work in education? Great. And so the other update I wanted to highlight was just that we have, and I'm pleased to say this, hired a new high school co-principal of teaching and learning. Her name is Shannon Ortiz Wong. She's an internal referral. She came through a referral of two of our strongest educators who she worked with in a prior setting. She's now the AP of Humanities at another charter high school in New York City, a part of a network. In terms of process that she went through, this was about 2 months of interview time, and I think it was the strongest showing we've ever had as a team with regard to having someone interview and simulating the work that they would do if hired and on the job. And so it was rigorous. It involved 6 total rounds of interviews, from an interview day to a number of different conversations with stakeholders and some follow-up tasks based on that interview day. And so it involved over 20 of our staff members, so a big group was able to kind of weigh in and see her in action before bringing her on. But we feel good. I think one of the things that I'm most pleased with through this process is that I've got a very good sense of her relative strengths and some of the areas of growth that she brings to the role and job. And so on the strength side, she's a very strong educator, strong teacher, and demonstrated that during the interview day. And then I think based on the reference calls, that was one of the things that her colleagues touted about her. And so excited to have a model teacher, obviously leading our high school with teaching and learning. In addition to that, she also performed quite well on the coaching of teachers, both in observation and what she identified and in the real life feedback to teachers following her observations. Beyond that, over the course of the entire process, and this excites me, she's very responsive to feedback and has a desire to get really good at her job. And so I'm excited to work with her and help her develop her skills out further. And then if I were to identify a fourth strength here, this was a tough time to interview. And so we did have some people drop, as I said, last month from the process. And this was right around the time that the pandemic became quite significant in our lives. And she worked through it and gave us a very good effort throughout the 3 or 4 days of prep time to the interview and then following from that. So I was impressed with her responsiveness to us pushing her pretty hard through the past month and a half. On the growth side of things, I think she performed less strongly, relatively speaking, on the data analysis performance task we put her through. I don't see this as like a strength that she can't develop over time, or a growth area that she can't develop over time. But I think she had trouble analyzing the data that we gave to her and coming up with very sound action steps based on that. And so that'll be something that I work with her on. I feel equipped in that area. And so I'm excited to help her get better at it too. The other growth area would be around coaching coaches, which I think has been a new muscle for my entire team in a very explicit sense over the past year and a half. And so I think she's strong in coaching teachers. She demonstrated that, but taking that a step back and thinking about how you develop managers, department chairs in this sense, to then develop teachers to then put forth really solid efforts in front of kids is an area that I think she'll join us in continuing to develop in the coming year. I would say thirdly, if there was an area of growth for her, it's not really a growth area, it's just her experiences in the humanities. And so she's not a specialist in the math and sciences. So that's something that I need to be aware of, and team needs to be aware of and build around. So she has had experience this past year in coaching the math team at New Visions. And So she has some experience in that, but I don't think it's her cup of tea. She's much stronger in the humanities, and so this is just something to identify that we need to build her skills in and build around her, and then providing really good leadership for the math and science team. But in general, like going back to process, I do feel really good about knowing where she stands at this point in time, and then working with her starting next week to onboard her to our school and begin some of the pre-work between now and July 1st, when she officially joins the team. And so she's going to be taking part in some remote, limited but weekly work with me and teammates at the high school. There are 4 general buckets that she's going to focus her time on during the next 6 to 7 weeks. One of those is just information download, like learning about our policies, us as a school, looking over our student and family handbooks, taking part in some meetings here and there that are relevant, looking at our curriculum. So just a lot of like information gathering. In addition, we've got a few PD sessions coming up externally at the end of May that I'm going to have her take part in on coaching and feedback, weekly data meetings, and then leading culture of schools. So she'll take part in 2 of those sessions. And then from that, begin planning PD for both the summer and over the course of the year. I want her to do that with Michelle Roy Gaines, our middle school co-principal. I think they're going to work well together. They share some strengths, but also they complement each other well in a few areas. And so having them create our scope and sequence for the course of our PD of teachers and managers next year, I think is a nice lift up from where we've been in prior years, where that collaboration across sites hasn't been so strong. And then relationship building. She's got we're going to put her on a listening tour, have her meet with teachers who she's not met with before, and just hear about their experiences in an honest way. We'd like to have her take part in the bag and lunch with families, just a remote bag and lunch with principals sort of gathering. And then we have community meetings happening with different grading levels at the high school, which I'd like for her to take part in. So through all of that, the aim is to have her, and I think another strength here is that she's really good at relationship building and building the trust and connection of teams. And so I think I want to leverage that pretty hard. So that's the update with Shannon. Are there any questions, ideas, or insights based on what I've shared out?
When are you going to make the announcement of Chelsea's departure are you going to wait until the beginning of the year, or are you just going to?
No. Yeah, no, good question, Trudy. I think that's probably going to happen at the next bag and lunch meeting for families. And then with kids, it'll happen at the community meetings coming up. I think we, Chelsea wavered a little bit, and then with just everything that's been going on over the past month, maybe wavered a bit more. Now that Shannon's on the team, the move is to Chelsea announce her departure, and then also say, and we now have Shannon coming in to take the lead next year, and excited about that.
Okay, sounds good.
Other questions? All right, so I think, let's see. The only other announcement I want to just sort of highlight coming from the school leader report is around high school graduation, and just to put it on your radar. So, and other schools are in the same boat. We're not going to hold our prom and senior trip in the way we intended. They've both been canceled or postponed. We're getting our money back to families so that if they need that funding, they can use it for things that are required. We do hope to offer a prom experience to kids at a future point in time, to be determined with the input of kids and families. So that's on the radar and to be planned. And then, so with addition to that, with our graduation ceremony, that's going to be postponed too. There's nothing we can do about that. And so I think we want to have a graduation ceremony proper for our kids at a future date when it's safe to do so. In the short term, we will do something remote for kids and virtually with kids. So that's now in the works with regard to planning. So those are the updates I have for the school leader report that I wanted to just make mention of explicitly in this call. Are there any other questions before we move on? Cool. I think, Jim, back to you.
Can we keep going on the report? I'm interested in the, I think the budget, we'll address later, but I'm interested in the college admissions and all that.
I'm going to move on. Yeah, no, I'm going to move on to, I think I want to talk about that during the strategic planning.
Okay. Where do you want to go next?
We can go right to data dashboard.
Let's do it.
All right. So if you all pull up the dashboard PDF file. Let's see. There are a lot of updates here in green. So most of the tables have been updated. I want to bring your attention to 6 of them relatively quickly. So the first is in table 7, and this is around student recruitment for 2021 and next year. I'm not going to say a lot about the table. I think what's new or updated here is that with regard to matriculation, and this is in the school leader report, we've had some promising signs with regard to enrollment in the 6th grade especially, where the team has effectively been able to gather the paperwork and efficiently sign on all of the kids, 94 kids, I believe, that's our target for the coming year at this point. And so it's a different kind of year with regard to just what's being experienced in our community. And so for that reason, there are some uncertainties. But with regard to where we are and what we've done in the past with recruitment and enrollment, at this point in time, we've got 94 kids who have signed on, where we have the paperwork in that make us feel like, okay, this is sound. So that feels really good at this point in time. And I think that is a result of a very strong team at the middle school, making strong contacts with families and having them sign on to our school. So again, I'm cautiously optimistic with regard to that data. Other questions about recruitment and matriculation? Cool. I'll move this forward to table 8, which is staff retention. And so a similar pattern here. Overall, strong retention as of now, both for full staff and for our core teachers. It's a very different year. And so some people are making changes in plans where they're staying put, where perhaps they were going off to grad school with a significant other next year or moving out of state. There are people that tend to be sort of staying put. And so that is certainly aided to, at this point in time, being able to report out that retention is fairly strong at over 85%. I don't want to say it's only due to the circumstances. I want to also mention that middle school culture has been strong all year. And it's the strongest it's been since our first year, when we rolled up our sleeves and said, let's start a school together, and everyone was all in. And so I'm pleased with the work that Michelle and Casey have done in very soundly and consistently over the course of the year, thinking about how you bring positivity and joy and productivity to the workplace. And I think they've done that. And so I think some of these numbers at the middle school reflect that good work that they've done this year. So overall, retention seems solid right now, and I want to move on, unless there are questions, to staff recruitment.
Josh, how would you say, what's your retention rate among what you would consider your highest performers?
On par with what's here, maybe even slightly higher.
Okay, thanks.
So let's see. With staff recruitment, this is a new table and it's been updated. And so you'll see there are 5 vacancies. No, there are 6 listed, but there are only 5 now. We hired on a math teacher today at the middle school. So there are 5 vacancies at the middle school and 6 at the high school at this point in time. For the middle school, at least 2 of those 5 vacancies are live. There's action, meaning we've got offers out and we're waiting to hear back from people tomorrow and Thursday. So feel good about that. That's with ELA and with history. At the high school, there's also been some actions with the deans. We've got 2 dean vacancies this coming year, as well as a math chair vacancy. And so there's been some communication with outside promising people there. And so that's live. And then I have spoken with the incoming co-principal of teaching and learning about possible network members of hers who may be intrigued by vacancies here at Unity. And so some moves. I feel overall that we're significantly better positioned this year at this point in time with regard to staffing than we were last year and the year before. And so that feels good. At the same time, there's just some uncertainty with just how things evolve over the course of the next couple of months with the pandemic and with decisions beyond our control at the state level and with the DOE. Are there any questions about staff recruitment? All right, I'm going to move us forward now to the last
Sorry,
page.
I just want to make sure I'm following. On the staff retention,
Yep.
there's all staff, core content teachers, and then leadership shows up in table 9 instead of table 8. Is that right?
Yep.
And then, so I guess if I focus on core content teachers, there's only one of our core content teachers we didn't offer renewal. Is that because some of the ones we might not have offered were already choosing to leave, and sort of the 5 that were choosing to leave, or because I feel like not being on the SLC, I don't know the details. My sense during the school year was that there were some weak points in our sort of staff teachers.
And so is this for middle school or for high school, Jake? Or for both?
I guess I'm looking at the overall number, the 1 and the 5, but
Yep. I think the other thing that does not control here, so we did make a couple of decisions over the course of the year with regard to discontinuing employment for various staff members, and then we have hired folks on since then. So that also explains some of the reasons that these might not match up apples to apples in the same way.
got it. So you think that you've sort of dealt with the problem areas?
I think yeah. I'm excited that I think we like to think our team gets stronger each year. I think right now we're on par for that. I think there's also a sense of for a couple of staff members that have struggled this year. There have been, and I'm thinking of maybe 3 cases. We're going to move forward with agreements with them for the coming year and continue with improvement plans. And so that might be partly a result of the environment we're in now, where we want for there to be some stability among team while at the same time looking to shore up talent within team. And so that would be the other sort of, I guess, decision this year that we've taken in light of the pandemic.
God, you think it's going to be hard to find replacements? You're saying, so you're sort of like inclined to.
Well, I think I think there's a. I mentioned earlier that the middle school team has had really strong positive camaraderie this year. And so I think some of this is cultural too, and kind of like keeping that going and that being perhaps important and outweighing in some cases some of the concerns that we have now around staff performance that we think with more time we can help people get better in. So I think that's the theory of action at this point in some of those decisions.
Got it. And then maybe on the high school side, I guess it feels like that's in a way where we've had more problems.
Yeah, I think the only thing I'd say there, just to kind of keep it direct but brief here, would be that I mentioned over the year that we had faced some struggles culturally, perhaps at the admin end of things more so when thinking about like coherence. And I think that is represented in that table with regard to the way that things are shaking out around retention at the teacher level and admin level of things. And so it's consistent with perhaps some of the challenges faced in the fall and then the ways in which we're moving forward this coming year.
Okay.
Are there any other questions around recruitment of staff or retention of staff? All right, I'll keep things moving. So last three tables, that's table 12. Just with family participation, I want to shout out that our goal for spring conferences were met even with this pandemic. And so I mentioned this, I think, during Thursday's call with the DFC, but with fall conferences at the high school to the spring, we had 40% of families take part in conferences in the fall. We had 66 take part in virtual conferences last week. So a strong kind of showing and improvement, and like it may be a lesson learned or best practice for us of providing more options for families in connecting with teachers to discuss how kids are doing in classes, and offering that at a remote level too. With regard to student participation in extracurriculars, we're not having a spring season, obviously, but with the winter and fall, we did meet our goal of 40% taking part on average in extracurriculars after school. And so that feels good. Certainly room for improvement there, but that was what we set as the bar for this year. And based on athletics, clubs, etc., we met that. Finally, with regard to SPED compliance, things continue to be strong. And so we looked at the degree to which IEPs were up to date this past month, the degree to which they're fully met or partially met, and we're at 100% or just below in all cases. In the event that we're below, there are some things outside our control with the CSE and with reporting that needs to happen outside of us, and so I feel good about that data too. So that's the report for May with regard to dashboard. Jim, back to you.
Okay. Strategic planning.
Yeah, so here's where I want to double back to that college data. So in the school leader report, there's an update on college admittance and matriculation as of May 4th. And so I want to underline three stats here, which I think are solid indicators of where things could go if we continue in the good work that we've been doing thus far this year. And so 100% of our seniors have been admitted to at least one college. I shared that out to you last meeting. The new data is that 80% of seniors have either committed to a specific college or are weighing actionable financial aid offers from their top schools. This is coming from Eric Gonzalez, our director of college readiness. And so that's solid, and that's much higher than what our target was for this year with regard to kids getting into college and then ultimately matriculating. So if these numbers evolve in the way that they're indicating now, we're looking at a really strong first year with regard to kids transitioning to college. I think the last stat that I'd tout is just in looking at family financial sort of like standing, and then the colleges that kids have gotten into and the packages they've received financially. Eric believes that every one of our kids who's getting into school has a viable option available to him, and that's important, obviously, right? And so, so three good indicators here that I think for us, again, if we do the good work of continuing to onboard kids into a college campus in the coming year, really, I think are strong in comparison to certainly first-year high schools, but maybe high schools in general in New York. So I'm excited by those figures as of now. We're moving into a renewal year, our fourth year of our first renewal next year. And so we're going to have strong high school graduation numbers this year, but I think that most high schools in the city will have stronger high graduation numbers as a result of just changes in requirements and things. And so we won't shine in the same way that I thought we might in that area. We, however, will shine in this area if we pull through in the way that things indicate now. And so I'm excited to bring this to our authorizer in the coming couple of months, and also to inquire with our authorizer about what other data they have from schools that they also authorize that might be a good comparable for us, so that we know, I mean, how good is this? Is it sort of good? Is it really good? Etc. So this, I imagine, again, assuming that we deliver on where we are now, will be one of the strengths of our renewal application next year, the year after that. So strategy-wise, we're thinking ahead to next year and already looking at the tail end of our first renewal term. Are there questions or insights there?
Well, obviously it's a great data point. I think you're right. I mean, I remember those conversations you and I and some others had with the folks when we were going through the renewal, and this was something. It was graduation and this. It's one thing to say they graduated. It's another to get them into college. So this is a very, very positive data point. Congratulations on that. And then on the graduation, remind me, what is going to happen in New York for graduation this year?
Various schools will do different things. There are some larger entities that are offering kind of broader college virtual ceremonies. And so we've yet to make a full decision on exactly what we want to do and who we might partner with to create something special for our kids. But in the near term, it'd be something virtual. I want to do something ceremonial and in person as soon as we can when it's safe. And so that may be even next spring. I'm not sure. I think that in learning about what other schools and colleges are doing, I mean, some colleges are moving their graduation ceremony a full year out down the road. And some are maybe doing it during a break in December. And so we'll continue to gather good ideas and then perhaps borrow or come up with our own for that kind of makes our kids and families feel special, given that this is a big moment.
Okay. Where do you want to go next? Committees?
Yeah, I think we move on to committee reports next.
Okay, AFC.
All right, Leslie, maybe it makes sense for you to report out first the update for the month of March.
Yep, and I'll be very high level because I know you want to discuss more around the budget. Currently, we're expected to end the year on a positive note of $156,252. Net income is projected to be at $102,886. In regards to revenue, we're showing a positive revenue change. Revenue is projected to be at $12,259,861, which is a positive variance over budget of $127,804. In regards to expenses, expenses are projected to come in at $12,723,000, which is lower than budget by $28,449. Now, what makes up some of these changes? There wasn't really much movement from last month. I will say that we received our last per pupil invoice, which is number 6, and that one is giving us an enrollment change over budget on a positive note of 71,907. Gen Ed student enrollment is roughly 537 compared to 536 of budget, and SPED enrollment is 125 students compared to 119 of budget. Bless you.
Thank you.
The only really change besides the per pupil is in regards to restricted contributions. I think last month we had a discussion on transferring possibly $70,000 to cover athletics and professional development. It was decided during our finance committee call that because we are only currently running over on the athletic budget, that we would, and the amount of that is roughly $10,413, that is the only amount that we will be looking to transfer from FOB. So instead of the 70,000, it'll be 10,000. Any questions on revenue before I move to expenses? Okay. Nothing different in regards to expenses. Expenses pretty much held flat, except for we eliminated the 40,000 of the PD expenses that we were looking to spend, and that's pretty much going to stay flat, except for the higher sped collaborative that has been discussed throughout the year, and that we're actually going to see the 10,000 come through on the athletic expenses. So cash on hand, excluding the escrow balance, we have 57 days of cash on hand at $1,795,084. The projected cash to carry over into the following school year, the 2021 school year, is projected to be roughly $671,000. Cash on hand for FOMB as of May 6th is $915,288. And if we wanted to look at any type of combined cash of FOMB and Unity, we would roughly have like 85 days of cash on hand at roughly $2.8 million. Any questions?
Thank you, Leslie.
Yep.
So just in moving on to the draft budget for 2020-21, a draft has been, I'm going to be brief somewhat here, and then Marion, Jim, Jeanette, if you want to chime in, please do. So a draft budget has been created, and it was shared with the AFC this past Friday. We're now, I mean, there's a lot up in the air with regard to state funding. So we're now awaiting further information on what per pupil funding will be for the coming year as we move forward to bring this up, hopefully for approval in mid-June at our next meeting. I had heard there were going to be updates at the state level as of the 15th, which is this Friday. I don't know whether that's going to be true or not, but obviously the earlier we have information on per pupil, the better for planning purposes. So the move is to wait to hear back from the state on per pupil funding, and then go back to the draft and incorporate those numbers that we hear, and again prepare a budget for approval come mid-June. So my sense is we'll have certainly another AFC call prior to the June board meeting, and I think it's going to be a good idea to probably get on the phone even before that next AFC call once new information is put forward from the state. So that'd be my timeline. Again, AFC folks, would you add anything?
Yeah, I'll jump in here. I think, we've had a lot of conversations around the budget, and typically this time of the year we'd be in full-blown kind of approval mode and things would be a little more solidified. And I think the view that a lot of people kind of have shared, this is an incredibly uncertain environment, and we, don't have much control over the revenues. We have no control over the revenues coming into the school. Next year, we don't know what those numbers are going to look like. So it's really, really hard to plan from a staffing perspective, from an extracurricular perspective, et cetera, and put something in writing around that without knowing what your revenues are going to be. We've seen numbers. We've done a lot of work on this. A lot of people on this call have done a lot of work on this, and we've seen numbers that reflect some. The low number I saw was something on the order of the 20% reduction. We've seen much smaller numbers, reduction numbers. We haven't seen anything. I haven't seen anything that indicates that there will be an increase to the per pupil, let alone holding firm. I think. So I think my view, and I think I'll speak for some others who I've spoken to, now is not the time to approve a budget given the uncertain environment. And we've got some time here. Let's use that time to get more information. I'm confident that something will come out of the state at the state level soon, because we're not alone in thinking about, should the state budget be horrible, we're not going to be alone in having to think about trade-offs and think about our costs, and we're just not, we just don't have the data yet. So again, ordinarily we'd be really digging into numbers right now, but it seems like not a waste of time, because it has been constructive to talk about these things, but there's really no way, given the uncertainty around this, we should be pushing for a vote at this point. And let's just, let's see how this plays out. Let's keep our, finger on the pulse in terms of what our revenue number might look like. And then we'll circle up again next month, hopefully with some more data. So I think that sums it up.
Mm-hmm. Great. Thanks, Jim. I think we can move on then to the next report out by the DFC. And so I guess, Jake, my thought was maybe to say a bit about the status of the abatement, but I think that was maybe the only item worth bringing up to the full board today. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think unfortunately we're still waiting on the abatement, but just as a reminder to everybody, once we get this next approval, which hopefully should come very soon, the abatement won't start immediately, but once we do the next piece, which is filing the tax forms, the abatement will date back to this date. If that makes any sense.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, so hopeful that it comes very soon. I think I've been following up with the lawyer a little bit. I think this is within the realm of normal, and then there's some delays because of COVID, but essentially it sits with the Department of Finance on some person's desk or hopefully in their email. And I noticed like in the budget, we're still for now budgeting that we bear that roughly $100,000 a year expense, but I think there's a strong likelihood that we won't.
Great. Moving on to ECPC. Is Sal on the call tonight? No. Okay. So I think I would just mention coming out of that call last week that this is kind of a development like update, but I think with Sal on both committees, they blend sometimes. Ram, who is the head of our associate board, has been pretty active recently in a mini campaign of getting funding together through his contacts to pay for some of the technology that we invested in early in March in getting out to families so that all of our kids had access to computers and the internet. And so I think about $3,000 to $4,000 has been raised over the past week with some of his contacts. And so we're appreciative of that effort, and it's an important cause. So shout out to him. And then finally, with the SLC, I guess Sarah and Jeanette, is there anything that perhaps we talked about that hasn't come up already? I feel like the big items that we discussed were presented.
Yeah, I agree. I think you've hit on, the remote learning, the hiring of the co-principal, and the staffing and retention, which I think were our primary topics.
Mm-hmm.
Agreed.
Great. And so I think with that, Jim, we're back to you with annual board business.
Okay, sorry, I'm bouncing around with screens here.
Yeah.
Okay. Hold on. I have to turn my video on. When I turn my video on, I'm going to lose you guys, but okay. Okay, great. First item up for approval are the minutes from the prior meeting. Does everybody have a chance to review? And does anybody have any questions or any items they want to discuss? Okay.
I think
right,
people need to put themselves on video, though.
Yeah, I'm going to try. If anybody, I'll ask for the vote. If anybody's a no, just verbally say it because I can't see everybody. I'm on satellite internet, unfortunately. So when I go on video, I lose all you. I'll trust you guys. So all in favor of the minutes from the prior meeting? Hearing no no's, I will say, I see some hands. Okay, thank you. Minutes are approved. Calendar for the 2020-21 school year. I just had a question on this. Is this the right time, given the uncertainty, to be approving this? Is it a requirement that we just have to do it?
And actually, I may have scratched it from most of the updated agendas, but maybe not the one in front of you, Jim. And so I didn't want to, I decided I didn't want to bring this up only because the DOE calendar has not come out yet. And I don't want to bring this back to the board next month if there are some dates that don't align. So it's okay that we hold off on this until next meeting.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, the renewal of the employee benefits. Maybe, I don't know, Marianne, do you want to explain, or Josh, just give the high-level overview of, we've already talked about this, but we ended up.
I can take that. So we talked about this in executive session because we had to make an initial decision of whether or not we wanted to shop this around or we wanted to stay with our current provider who was offering a roughly 20% rate decrease for next year. And that's kind of a one-time decrease because Unity will have more than 100 employees next year. And when you move from a small group, which is under 100, to a large group that's over 100, you get the benefit of being rated on your own merits as opposed to on your own demographics as opposed to the community that you're in. And usually when you're a young and healthy community, your premiums go down. So all this to say, this is a year where we're getting from the bucket where health insurance is obnoxiously expensive to a bucket where it's still expensive, but a little bit less so. And so for a package of roughly equal benefits, you'd get about a 20% decrease. And so the broker we use, MDG, went around and looked at what benefit package we could design, knowing the constraints we were operating under, and they went in two directions. The first direction was, what is it that we can get if instead of taking the 20% reduction in premium, we try to keep our premiums about constant? Is there anything compelling that we can do there? And they looked at various things, sort of changing the benefits in a number of ways, or trying to completely eliminate the risk on ER visits, or trying to supplant the HRA with plan benefits instead, and things like that. Our sense was that given everything else that's going on and the uncertainty on funding and everything, this is not the year to try to maximize benefits. Rather, we should take the opportunity to make the package better within reason, but still try to realize as much of the 20% reduction as possible. And so the options that were left there, and the package that Matt sent around is actually really informative and well done. So you can flip through for more information. But there were really two options. The first one was improvements at the margin, but keeping the same plan. That was a reduction of 21%. And forgive me because I don't have the document open in front of me, so I'm doing this from memory. And there was another option where if we could shift some of the cost of ER visits from effectively the plan and therefore the HRA that the school currently has to the plan itself, then that would be a reduction in premium of like 18%, which would make a difference. We did the math on the call. It's something like for the year for everybody, it's an extra premium of $22,000, I think. And that makes ER visits more predictable in price to plan members. And that also makes the school exposure, the reimbursement exposure that the school takes on under the HRA more manageable. And so the recommendation that Matt had was, it is protection that's worth buying, because even though your HRA expenses have only been about $10,000 a year, give or take, you don't know what the world is going to be like, and you don't know whether or not there's going to be in any given month a spike in ER visits, and those ER visits could be multiple thousands of dollars. And so this is insurance worth buying. And I didn't feel strongly, but I think his argument was convincing. And so I think we should go with what he's proposing, which was alternative. I forget whether it's 3 or 4, but it's the one that's an 18% reduction in premium, and that expands the ER benefits. The advantage of doing that is, compared to all the other options that we could have looked at, it's a familiar plan. It's familiar benefits. There's some benefits that are improved, including ER, but it's otherwise kind of the same as everybody is familiar with. We did go through 2 other things with Matt that I wanted to cover on the call, so people had a good sense of the whole picture. So the HRA is the other piece of this. And if you remember, when we switched a few years ago, we had a choice of buying a fancier plan from, I forget whether it was this carrier or another one, or buying a plan that had benefits that were somewhat less rich, but then supplementing that with a reimbursement plan, which is the HRA. That's a unity expense, and that comes to pay a portion of the deductible that people are stuck with under the existing plan, because the way these plans are priced, the lower your deductible, the more insane your premiums are. So one way to manage the premiums is to have a higher deductible, and then Unity on the back end pays for some of it, and that's a known number, so that's a manageable exposure. So the HRA is going to stay in place because there are certain changes in the underlying plan. The terms of the HRA are going to change slightly. There's a slight increase in what's going to be covered in terms of certain prescription drugs, but otherwise it's going to remain about the same. So I think that kind of goes hand in hand with the benefit package design under the insurance plan. So I think that's easy. The second point I wanted to flag, because I just didn't remember this off the top of my head, is sort of how does this affect Unity employees? Because I think Chris had brought up in prior years that some people were getting frustrated with the high cost and everything, and so the cost reduction is going to get passed on pro rata to the employees. Meaning, the way this works, and again, I think you should have it in the package, but the Unity covers 90% of the monthly premium for individual coverage, 80% for individual plus one, and 70% for individual plus family, give or take. And so when the whole set of premium goes down 20%, then people's bill at the end of the month is going to go down 20%, and their benefits are going to be slightly better. So we think it's a good package. It's a one-off. We shouldn't expect 20% reduction in future years, because once we're in that bucket, there's no more improvements of the sort to be had. And Chris's sense was that people would be happy with it. And I think Matt and team did a good job in finding the right balance of savings and tailoring a few of the benefits to make them a little better, or to limit people's exposure or Unity's exposure where that was possible.
Excellent.
Excellent. Great overview. Thank you, Marianne. Anybody have any questions? Okay. So everybody's received the packet, and hopefully had a chance to review it. I think it's an exceptional outcome. The first time we've seen a reduction, like, ever. So employees respect that, and they're happy about it. Okay, so on the matter of the renewal employee benefits, all in favor?
Yeah, I think somebody, Chris, or if you have, I forget whether it's alternative 3 or alternative 4, but we should put the right number in there.
I think it's alternative. Yeah, I think it's alternative 4.
Okay, so it's 4. It's the one with the 18% reduction and the improvement in the ER visit stuff. So, okay.
That's right.
All in favor of alternative 4? Let's see some hands. Any opposed? Seeing none. Okay, thank you. That's approved. Okay, moving on. Public comment. I don't know who we have from the public on this call, but We obviously we welcome any comments from anybody who has joined us. Okay, none. Last thoughts. Well, Josh, I won't take any time here. I think, I'll just say I'm really happy with you and your team in terms of the pivot you guys have had to make on pretty short notice going to this remote environment. And the engagement numbers are fantastic. The college numbers are great. There are going to be challenges. There are challenges, but you and I have spoken a couple times over the last 2 weeks or so, 3 weeks. There is going to be some learnings that come out of this, and I think Jake circulated an article earlier. There's going to be some good stuff that comes out of all this, and we're going to be able to improve, taking advantage of technology, doing some things remote, meeting with the families remotely because they're typically working and whatnot. And I would just encourage you and your team to search those things out because we'll be better because of this. But kudos to you guys for really exceptional job you guys have been doing over the last almost 2 months now. Holy cow! It's a good job.
Yeah. No, thank you, Jim. I appreciate that. And yeah, we're pleased, and there's a lot of room to get better at this, and certainly more we want to do for our kids. I think the June meeting is typically a very busy one for the agenda, and so just looking at the list, we've got financial policies to look at and update, a budget to approve, committee updates that happens every year, as you know. We've got a meeting schedule, just when we meet on a monthly basis, both in general and among the subcommittees. Got a calendar to approve. I think casualty insurance might be on the docket. Is that right, Mario?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then any re-elections for folks who are finishing their term. I don't think anyone is offhand, but that would come up. And then conflict of interest statements. So busy approval meeting coming up in June.
All right. Any last comments? If not, we will close. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great night. Okay. Be well.
Bye.
Good night.
Bye.
Thanks, bye.
Yep. Yeah, sure. Yes. Yes. Six.